Hi, my name is Matthew Boyd and I'm doing a short presentation on the Peloponnesian War and Sparta's strategy during it. I will be answering the question of, to what extent was Sparta's victory in the Peloponnesian War due to its strategy rather than Athens' mistakes? So, in short, I'm discussing whether or not Sparta won the war or Athens lost it. From my research, the extent of Sparta's victory in the Peloponnesian War was primarily due to Athens' mistakes rather than its strategy. Athens had the potential to win the war as they had a superior navy, more money, several chances to take the upper hand, a walled city, an empire, and many more advantages. Although, due to a few major mistakes, Athens lost a number of these advantages and eventually lost the war. Firstly, I'm going to give you a brief rundown on the war and give you an idea of what I will be talking about during my speech. So, the Peloponnesian War, according to traditional historians, occurred in 3 phases, and this is how I will be breaking down Sparta's strategy during the course of my speech. So, the first stage of the war was the Archidamian War, spanning from 431 to 432 BC. During this time, Sparta's strategy was mainly to annually invade Attica and ravage the countryside. The second phase occurred from 421 to 413 BC, and finally the third, the Decelean or Ionian War, from 413 to 404 BC. During the second phase of the war, Athens and Sparta were not at war. However, Sparta did engage in some battles with Athens and sent the general Gylippus to aid the Syracusans. The Ionian War, however, was a point where Sparta began to slowly dominate Athens strategically and eventually gain their victory. As I said before, Sparta began the war by using an offensive strategy, which is an attempt to force Athens into a decisive battle, become the liberators of Greece, and end the war quite quickly. Sparta, in the first 7 years of the war, successfully invaded Attica 5 times for short periods of time, ravaging the countryside, and was stopped once by an earthquake and on another occasion by their own fear of the plague. Sparta showed no sign of stopping these annual invasions. However, due to the Athenians capturing 300 Spartan hoplites, they ceased the invasions. During this period, Sparta did not succeed in either its endeavors, as Pericles' response was first to retreat the people of Attica into the protected city and wait out the invasions, as Athens could function normally as its port was not blocked, and then second, to send small fleets to raid the Peloponnesian coastline. During these first years of the war, Sparta did not engage with Athens directly. The annual invasions accomplished practically nothing, and even when they had the opportunity to inflict massive damage on Athens during the plague, they did nothing. Compared to the effects of the plague, which killed 1/3 of the population, Sparta's effects on Athens were dismal. After the capture of the 300 Spartan hoplites, the general Brasidas came to power in Sparta and led Sparta in the invasion and capture of the city Amphipolis, which was a key state in financing Athens. Soon after this, the Battle of Amphipolis occurred, of which the victor was Sparta. After this battle, both Sparta and Athens wanted a peace agreement formed, as Sparta wanted their hoplites back, and Athens had been so demoralized due to their 2 defeats in the battles of Delium and Amphipolis. The Nicus peace agreement was formed in 421 BC. As you can now see, Sparta's strategies in the first stage of the war were clearly not suited to the aims of forcing Athens into a decisive battle. At the end of this period, Athens came out relatively unscathed and still retained much of its power. With the negotiations of the Treaty of Nicus, the second phase of the war began. The peace and relationship between Sparta and Athens quickly broke down soon after this, and although there was tension and a few battles between Athens and Sparta, they were not actually at war for this phase. The Battle of Mantinea, in which Sparta faced the alliance of Athens, Argos, Mantinea, and Elis, was one of the only movements against Athens that Sparta performed during this second phase. Apart from this, the only other major action towards Athens was when they sent the general Gylippus with reinforcements to aid Syracuse during the Athenian invasion. Gylippus very much turned the tables against the Athenians and eventually managed to decimate the entire expeditionary force. Sparta's military strategies during this period far surpassed that of the Athenians. With the destruction of the Athenian forces at Sicily, Sparta declared war against the crippled Athens, marking the beginning of the third phase of the war. The third phase of the war started in the year of 413, when Sparta declared war against Athens. The failure and decimation of the Athenian forces at Sicily left Athens extremely vulnerable, and Sparta took the offensive, seizing the opportunity to again try and destroy the Athenian Empire. Sparta began the war by fortifying Decilia, which was a very strategic position as it allowed Sparta to control the main roads of Attica all year round. While Sparta occupied Attica, they also encouraged the Ionian states of Athens to revolt. The consequences of their actions caused much of Ionia to revolt and caused thousands of slaves to run away, which crippled the Athenian economy. Soon after this, in the years 412 and 411 BC, Sparta began negotiations with Persia. However, neither side actually acted on these treaties, and Persia only began to support Sparta when Cyrus came to the scene. During this time, Sparta also had a navy built as they realized to defeat Athens, they would need to control the sea. Sparta again went on the offensive after this and moved the war from Ionia and Euboea to Hellespont, which allowed Sparta to control and cut off Athens' grain supply and get additional support from Pharnabazus. Throughout the years of this phase, although Sparta did go on the offensive, it is worthwhile noting that Athens recovered from the disastrous state, quelling the Ionian revolts. This happened primarily due to the Peloponnesians' slow reactions to attack and sail fleets into the Aegean. Also, another important note is that after Sparta's defeat in the Battle of Kynosimia, Sparta did pursue a peace treaty between the states. However, Athens rejected it. After this period, Lysander, the Spartan general, entered the war and basically turned the tables of the war. Sparta, under Lysander's command, pushed the war in favor of themselves and won two very decisive battles, eventually forcing Athens to surrender in 404 BC. Okay, so now I've given you a rundown on Sparta's actions and strategies during the war. Now I'm going to talk to you about Athens' mistakes during the war and how they affected the outcome. Firstly, the single most major mistake made by Athens during the war was the decision to greatly enlarge the second expedition to Sicily. This expedition had first been planned to be small. Nicus convinced the people to send an armada, which left Athens extremely defenseless if something were to happen back in Athens. This, combined with the fact that Athens' strategies and decisions during this expedition were poor, was a recipe for disaster. Sparta soon decided to aid Syracuse by introducing the Spartan general Gylothus. The Spartan general turned the tables and the forces of Athens were decimated. With the decimation of this force, the balance of power changed, which directly led to the Spartan decision to declare war again in 413 BC. If Athens had not made this mistake, the events after the expedition would have been extremely different. Who knows what could have happened? If they had not enlarged this expedition force, it is possible that Sparta would not have declared war again for a long period of time, and Athens could have sustained its great power and possibly increased it. During the war, Athens did make other mistakes, like the choice to support Lydia's revolt against Persia in 420 BC, which caused the breakdown of the relationship between Persia and Athens. However, these were dismal compared to the mistake of sending the majority of their forces to Sicily. Okay, so now that I've told you all about Sparta's strategy during the war and the major mistakes that Athens made, did Athens lose or did Sparta win? Sparta's reactions, strategies, tactics were a large contributor to their victory. However, there are many ways in which they failed. At the end of the Archidamian War, Athens had not been majorly damaged or crippled in any way, essentially meaning Sparta had failed and lost this part of the war. Only after the Athenian failure and decimation at Sicily did Sparta react and declare war again, eventually forcing Athens to surrender. Even during this last phase of the war, Sparta's military tactics and great opportunity did not see the end of the war until 404 BC, 9 years after they had declared war. Sparta's conservative military tactics of only reacting when things got out of hand were severely outmatched by the tactics of Athens. If Athens had not enlarged their expedition force to Sicily, the outcome of the war could have been much different. To conclude, the extent of Sparta's victory in the Peloponnesian War was primarily due to Athens' mistakes rather than Sparta's strategy. Thank you for listening to my podcast.